Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to the first of two back-to-back webinars that we have this week from the Palestinian Technological University Kadoorie. We have we have Professor Said Kayat from Palestinian Technical University Kadoorie, and also my very good friend Dr. Deral Elian, Vice President of the university. Today we're going to be focusing about green education. It is again within e-learning, but we have an expert who has actually spent most of his research time in Germany before applying research and finding innovative solutions to Palestine. What we will talk about today also hopefully pick up the brains of our speaker about his background in terms of the role of water in the world and the environmental impact of water. But of course, I assume we will be listening also about one of the very recent projects from the European Union funded in terms of how a virtual learning environment can be developed and used as a medium for communication and education for environmental issues. Before giving the word to Professor Kayad, I was going to ask whether Professor Dr. Derar Elian would like to say a couple of words about PTUK and in Palestine and how you have brought together these two webinars to us. So Dr. Derar, if you would like to say a couple of words.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you, Professor George Dafulos, and thanks for everyone for attending this webinar. Actually, I would like to welcome Professor Said for his contribution on green education, the positive effects of a blended or e-learning process on the global environment. And also tomorrow we will be having also Professor Nawaf Abu Khalaf. We'll be talking about the climate change also, another webinar. These webinars are part of the British Council project for assuming responsibility for climate change. These two professors are from Palestine Technical University, and we are partnered on this project. Actually, Palestine Technical University, Kadoorie, is very active in partnership with different projects in Erasmus, in British Council, and with UNDP, with different sponsors from all over the world. And we have partnership with different countries and different universities. And we are very proud for this project, and we are looking forward for the continuation of this project. And welcome again for everyone. And thanks, Professor George and Professor Said, for your contribution.
Thank you very much, Professor Said. The floor is
Yes,
yours to introduce yourself, your background, and of course the talk. I'm going to mute
yes,
myself now.
thank you. Thank you. Good day for everybody. I will introduce myself to whom joined recently. My name is Said Khayat. I'm professor in College of Agricultural Science and Technology at Palestine Technical University, PTUK, and I'm a water and environment specialist. So I got my PhD from University of Karlsruhe in Germany and did some postdoc studies and recently get my professorship from Palestine Technical University. So let me shifting directly to our topics, which is the new idea about which is somehow strange, and I faced some our little literatures that is talking about the positive effect of e-learning or blended learning on the climate change or in the globe. So what I'm doing or what I want to talk about is giving overview on the benefit of blended or e-learning. I will talk a little bit about the climate change as a major international challenge, and then mention some strange thing, which is how the educational activities will making situation worse, how it will contribute to environmental problems, and vice versa, how the distance learning, e-learning, and new habits that we imposed to do in the last couple of years will change that change even all the human routinely activities toward better environment, and then talking about some conclusion. So from students' point of view, from teachers' point of view, a lot of studies talking about the positive outcomes of distance learning. So they have a lot of positive impacts. One is the accessibility. So if we have some disabled students, non-traditional students that want to join certain courses, the accessibility is more easier for them. Flexibility, there is no scheduling conflict, and we face such a problem all in our administrative sections, especially academic sections, where we always have such interference between different times of lectures. So in the presence of this flexibility, we have flexible time to put or to set our schedule, academic schedule, very good. Also, the things which lead us in the recent couple years to this type of learning is decreasing diseases transmission, and then the findings to be reported here suggest an additional advantage for teaching with online learning as a good for the environment. This was the idea from few literatures I have found in the internet, and I can estimate from my experience how to calculate the carbon footprint, how to calculate the CO2 emissions or CO emissions to the environment that can complicate the global warming and the climate change problem worldwide. So let me talk first about the climate change. So in the climate change, as a major problem, as a major global problem, I think the climate change is not an urgent or a new event on the Earth. Yeah, I can confidently say that the globe faced previously, historically, a series of climate change during the history of the Earth. And the past 2 centuries shows a leap in a technology, in an industry, and in a lifestyle that accelerate, let me say, accelerate the climate change and the global environmental problem. So historically, Earth suffering from different successive climate change problem, but recently in the past 2 centuries, due to this high leap in technology, it was a really big shifting in the lifestyles of the people that adversely or negatively affect on the environment. We get used to make several behaviors, several routine activities, and accelerate the problem of the climate change more than any time in the past of the Earth. I believe that suddenly the Earth said, stop. I will give you some urgent or contingent situation where you must change your habits. So one of these habits is our routinely education, our activity of our higher education institutions. And let me here illustrate how the face-to-face education can complicate the problem of environment or the environmental problems all over the world. I mean, we always hear about the industrial activities, the CO2 emissions, the industrial emissions, and other things that affect or has a great effect or adverse effect on the global warming, on the ozone hole, and other environmental problems. But how the educational activities can really effect on the environment. So we will begin from face-to-face education to see how the e-learning will have the positive effect on the environment by reducing all of carbon dioxide that trapped in the environment, reducing or changing the human activity, how it will mitigate the atmospheric impact. And I think I don't need a methodology to conduct to reach such findings. I think the last few or couple of years with this COVID-19 contingency demonstrate that the environment become more friendly, or we become more friendly to the environment. The human activities become less. The human habits that affect the environment is really or significantly reduced, and the environment become more or less better. So the question now is, how can the e-learning process change the human routine activities toward better education, if we are talking about the education? So first of all, I can assume that all of your students reaching universities using their cars, using their transport, and this transport make a real problem. It's the second cause of global warming or CO2 emission all over the world. So in Palestinian community, many students normally have traveled daily from their homes with an average distance of 20 kilometers to the university's campuses using different kind of transport, but mainly we have here buses and cars. And this has been noticeably reduced in the Corona year 2021. So by small calculation, in PTUK, we have 12,000 students in the academic year 2021. And assuming each 3 students commuted by 1 car, personal or public transport, this means 4,000 cars per day that coming and back from the university campus. Each car normally emitted 130 grams CO2 per kilometer. And this implies that we have 520 kilogram per kilometer of CO2 emissions to atmosphere. If we assume that the average distance in the north of the West Banks from the student's home to the campus is 20 kilometers, then the total daily CO2 emission added to the environment out of PTUK students alone, so transport alone, is around 10,400 kilograms CO2 daily. So the situation is more complicated or more worse than we thought. The other thing is the energy consumption. So of course, the reduction in the energy consumption by education institute, and thus production consequences on the environment. If we think that there are no regular classroom, we have distance learning, we have only the computer that consumed little electricity, we have less daily power consumption by institutions, and so on. So I think the most large expenses that each higher education institution pay is the power, the energy. The other thing is the paper production. So the paper production, if we have less paperwork consumption, means less industrial production or recycling activities. And we also, on the other side, reduce the deforestation and keep the global environmental more healthy. So some studies say that a typical teacher is used anywhere in the world around 25 to 75 pieces of paper per day. In a year, the school can use 360,000 pieces of paper, if we assume that we have 180 school days. There is a study for Wang indicated that the CO2 emission due to paper and pulp industry is about 126 million ton to 155 million ton. Other studies show that the carbon footprint of thousands kilogram copying paper is around 650 kilograms CO2. So we can assume, or we can imagine how much of CO2 will be reduced if we reduce our paperwork, and this can be indicated easily in the last couple of years, where we reduced the paperwork and depend mainly on the electronic materials. The other thing, of course, which is also important, is reduction of solid waste. So reduction of solid waste, I think our university produced a huge amount of solid waste each year. And there is an internal study at PTUK that indicates that the university produced around half ton of waste in a normal day, in a normal educational day, half ton of waste, solid waste, that needs a daily pickup by the municipality with large vehicles and so on. Worldwide, many studies estimate that the total quantity of solid waste generated by the school's canteen alone, so we don't take any other waste resources, is about 15 to 25 kilograms per day, with the average solid waste of 1 to 3 grams per capita or per students per day. Of course, if we have less waste production, it will lead definitely to less CO2 emission and more healthy environment with electronic or blended learning activity. As a conclusion, I think the first conclusion that must be taken, that we need to find a compromise between the open e-learning system and the face-to-face system, which is a blended learning system. By the blended learning system, I think we can customize the courses which we give to the students for certain courses, for certain topics or themes, that can be reduced a little bit to be depend totally on e-learning material if it was not related to highly practiced skills that the students must acquire during his course of education. Also, there are definitely many positive effects for the blended learning and even e-learning, reducing carbon emissions and mitigating the climate change adverse effect. Many face-to-face educational activities will unintentionally affect the surrounded environment. We never noticed that before Corona contingencies, and contribute to the global climate deterioration. After this contingency situation, we noticed that we did a great job to serve a healthy environment and a healthy globe. Blended learning has many advantages, where besides increasing the students' effort in self-learning, it has also get advantage to the global environment. So orientation toward the blended or e-learning needs further studies to investigate other positive or negative effects, which is not only related to waste production or to transportation activity. So I think this aspect of the positive effect of blended and e-learning needs more investigation in many aspects rather than environmental aspects. So these are some references I used in this small survey, and I'm open to receive any questions from my dear audience. Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. Very interesting insights. And one of the questions that I'd really like to, I was talking to the presentation yesterday from Tinati in Nirma in Georgia, and I was saying that if it was very interesting to see the difference in commuting of our students. So do you think that this is a trend that will somehow continue after COVID, or are we going back
Yes,
to the old pattern? Sorry, Professor Said, if you can stop sharing so we can see our faces bigger. So.
Okay. Yes, that's really true. As I have explained, I think the positive effect of the last years on the global, not only in educational level, even in other industrial, in other socio-economical level, in other human behaviors, really has a positive hints or positive points that clearly upraised to the audience after this global pandemic. We never assume that we have such negative effect on the environment before exposing to this pandemic. So in the last few years, we noticed that we really make a very bad behavior unintentionally that adversely affects the environment. So I believe all the governments and even the United Nations will review the human behavior toward more, let's say, consequent behaviors to serve the environment and to serve the United Nations SDGs in more sustainable development for the earth and more healthy environment.
Okay, thank you very much. I have a follow-up question. I was wondering whether you could actually tell me how are you planning to educate your students so they can actually change their mindset, focusing more on e-learning, reducing the amount of waste they produce. And finally, what is the challenge when it comes to ministry level, political level, to recognize the importance of e-learning and its value as an equivalent to traditional education?
Yes, I think the students' awareness toward these issues, even if they were not an environmental specialist, is very important. Most of the people must have such awareness, so environmental awareness, and they need to see the expected outcome of this clean environment, not only for these generations, but for the future generations. And this should be then go to the next level, to the stakeholders level, where they can take this seriously and begin to work on to change the human behaviors toward more healthy behaviors in an environment. That's good.
Okay, thank you very much. Do we have any other questions? No? Okay. So what we will do is like we will, sorry, Michael, was there a question there?
I was going to ask, sorry, I was a bit slow on the uptick there. I was just going to ask, do you think, have you seen any changes in the student outcomes? So the actual student well-being and their academic achievement as a result of not being able to come in?
Yes, you are relatively, yes, you are right, of course, because I said we need to find a compromise where we can get the benefits of e-learning, but at the same time avoid these adverse effects in the students' achievements or the acquired skills during the academic process, because we have noticed that there is really negative, on the other hand, there is really negative outcomes from this totally system that depend totally on the e-learning process. I think we need to find a compromise from, for example, some general courses that is talking about general topics, not specialized themes, not specialized topics in certain field of education, where we can make a mixing or such a blended system that partially, for example, 40% depends on e-learning and 60% depends on face-to-face learning, in order to avoid such a problem we faced in the recent few years. Yes.
Hey, thank you very much. I think that Ariadne wants to say something.
I have a question, actually. I would like to ask if they believe that students in Palestine during the pandemic, and just because they had to be fully online, they faced any problems with technology. I mean that lack of technology, no internet connections, and they were not able to, I mean, that the speed of the connection was not quite enough in order for them to follow the lectures and the labs, that they were all fully online. Maybe they had some issues with not having laptops or desktops or any kind of technology issues. Do you believe that that was a year that these kind of problems, they came out and you had to face them?
Yes, we faced several problems like this, and I think the university administration take care at all cases we received from the students. For example, if we have a final exam and 5 students said we have a poor internet connection, then each lecturer has to repeat or to make a make-up exam for them in order to give them their fair opportunity like other students. That's right. And I think technology is the major challenge in e-learning. We need to have a really strong and good infrastructure in terms of communication and internet connection. This is in one side. In the other side of technology, we have a problem with the laboratories because and the field work, because in laboratories and field work we have a lot of missed skills and practical skills that the students have to learn in the last few years. That's why, again, I mean, we can reach finally a compromise. We can reach finally a solution that gather both the benefits of e-learning and also avoid some adverse effect on the students' achievement and on the academic process as a whole. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks for everyone for participating.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you all.